You have been taught that poverty is a virtue, or at best an unfortunate circumstance beyond your control. Joseph Murphy, the master of the subconscious mind and architect of mental law, declared the exact opposite with surgical precision. Poverty is a disease. It is a mental illness, as specific and diagnosable as a blockage in your cardiovascular system. There is no virtue in poverty. It is a restriction of life force, a constriction of the infinite flow that seeks to move through you. The universe is infinitely abundant, operating on principles of endless expansion and circulation. If you are poor, it means there is a clot in your mental arteries, a crystallized belief that has hardened into an obstruction, blocking the flow of divine substance. The moment you cure the mind through precise mental surgery, the money must flow with the same inevitability that blood flows when a physical blockage is removed. This is not metaphor. This is the mathematical operation of subconscious law. The pain you experience is the stress of scarcity, the suffocating sensation of living paycheck to paycheck, feeling perpetually squeezed by circumstances that seem beyond your control. You wake each morning with the weight of bills pressing against your consciousness, calculating whether you can afford basic necessities, wondering when the financial pressure will finally release its grip. This is the symptom of the disease, not the disease itself. You're attempting to fix the flow by working harder, taking extra shifts, cutting expenses to the bone, but you are leaving the fundamental clamp on the hose. You are treating the effect while ignoring the cause. Murphy's promise is immediate and verifiable. You can dissolve the mental clot instantly through understanding. The restriction exists only in thought, and thought can be changed in a single moment of realization. Once you truly comprehend that wealth is your natural state, and poverty is the anomaly, the aberration, the deviation from cosmic norm, everything inverts. You stop begging the universe for money as if you were a beggar, pleading with a reluctant king. You stop negotiating with reality, trying to convince it to give you what you need. Instead, you begin generating wealth naturally, the way your lungs generate breath, the way your heart generates circulation. Wealth becomes an automatic function of your corrected consciousness. The universe is not withholding abundance from you. You have been withholding yourself from abundance through the disease of poverty consciousness. Murphy identified the pathogen with clinical accuracy. It is the belief in limitation, the acceptance of lack as reality, the mental virus that tells you there is not enough. In this documentary, we will execute what Murphy called the wealth circulation protocol, the precise sequence of mental operations that removes the restriction and allows divine substance to flood your life with the force of a dam breaking. This is not theory, this is applied metaphysics, spiritual engineering with measurable results. You will learn the exact mental posture that opens the valve, the specific words that command the subconscious to reverse the flow from scarcity to abundance. But I must warn you now, there is a specific feeling, a silent jealousy that operates as an immediate poverty command, more destructive than any external circumstance. If you feel this particular emotion when you see a wealthy person, when you witness someone else's success, you destroy your own wealth instantly and automatically. Your subconscious receives the signal as a direct instruction to maintain your poverty. This wealth blocker is so common, so deeply embedded in collective consciousness, that 90% of humanity activates it multiple times per day without awareness. It is the hidden saboteur, the traitor inside the gates of your mental fortress. I will reveal this specific emotional poison in Part 4, along with its antidote. For now, understand that you are about to receive the cure for a disease that has been misdiagnosed for centuries. Poverty is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal. The medicine is knowledge. The dosage is understanding. The recovery is inevitable once you apply the treatment. If you are ready to accept this cure, to acknowledge that you were born into a universe of infinite supply, and that your poverty is simply a correctable error in mental programming, then type in the comments, "I am born rich." This is not positive thinking. This is a declaration of metaphysical fact. Subscribe to this channel to continue receiving the sacred formulas that dissolve limitation and restore your natural inheritance of abundance. Joseph Murphy taught with absolute clarity that money is merely a symbol, a token, a physical representation of something far more fundamental. Money is the visible manifestation of God's opulence, the material condensation of infinite supply that exists in the invisible realm of pure potential. It functions exactly like the air you breathe, an omnipresent medium that surrounds you constantly, available in quantities far beyond what you could ever personally consume. You do not hoard air in your lungs, desperately clutching each breath in fear that the next one will not come. You inhale and exhale with perfect trust, knowing that the atmosphere contains an inexhaustible supply. This is the exact mental posture required for wealth. Money must circulate through your life with the same natural rhythm as respiration, flowing in and flowing out in a continuous cycle of exchange. The disease of poverty originates in the belief that supply is limited, that there is a finite amount of wealth in the universe, and you must compete desperately for your small share before someone else takes it. This belief is the pathogen, the mental virus that infects consciousness and produces the symptom of material lack. When you accept limitation as truth, your subconscious mind, which Murphy identified as the faithful servant that never questions your instructions, begins to arrange your external circumstances to match your internal conviction. It literally repels opportunities, blinds you to possibilities, and magnetizes experiences of scarcity because it is operating on the blueprint you have provided through your beliefs. The subconscious cannot distinguish between a belief that serves you and a belief that destroys you. It simply executes whatever pattern you impress upon it with emotional conviction. To become wealthy in the Murphian system, you must first accept that wealth is a state of consciousness, not a number in a bank account, not a collection of physical objects, not a status you achieve through external accomplishment. Consciousness precedes manifestation in all cases, without exception. Your current financial condition is the perfect mirror of your habitual mental state regarding money. If you are poor, it is because you have been thinking poor, feeling poor, expecting poverty, and accepting lack as your reality. The bank account is the photograph. Consciousness is the negative from which it is printed. You cannot change the photograph by attacking it with scissors. You must change the negative. Murphy's entire system rests on this foundational principle. Change the consciousness, and the condition must follow with mathematical precision. This is not wishful thinking or motivational rhetoric. This is the description of a law as reliable as gravity. When you drop an object, it falls. When you change your consciousness from poverty to wealth, your external conditions rearrange themselves to match. The lag time between mental cause and physical effect creates the illusion that your thoughts are powerless, but this delay is simply the gestation period required for invisible patterns to condense into visible form. A seed planted in soil does not produce a tree instantly. There is a period of invisible growth beneath the surface before the sprout emerges. Your mental seeds operate identically. The wealth you claim in consciousness today is germinating in the invisible realm, preparing to break through into physical manifestation. Murphy emphasized that you must treat wealth as your birthright, not as a prize you might win if you are lucky or work hard enough. You did not have to earn the right to breathe. You were born with lungs and an atmosphere designed to support them. You did not have to prove yourself worthy of having a heartbeat. Your heart began functioning before you took your first conscious thought. Wealth operates on the same principle of natural inheritance. You are born into an abundant universe, designed by an infinite creator who knows nothing of limitation. Poverty is the learned behavior, the acquired disease, the cultural programming that contradicts your essential nature. Every infant enters the world expecting to be fed, expecting to be cared for, expecting its needs to be met without question. This is the consciousness of wealth, the original mental posture before society infects you with beliefs in scarcity. The work of mental healing, then, is not to create something new, but to remove the obstruction, to dissolve the false beliefs that block the natural flow of supply. You are not trying to force the universe to give you something it is withholding. You are removing the dam you have constructed through ignorant thinking. Murphy compared this to cleaning a clogged pipe. The water pressure is always present, always seeking to flow, but accumulated debris prevents its passage. Your poverty is the accumulated debris of negative beliefs, fearful expectations, and habitual thoughts of lack. The moment you clear the pipe through conscious recognition of abundance, the pressure that has been building behind the obstruction is released, and wealth floods into your experience with surprising force. This understanding transforms your entire relationship with money. You stop approaching it as a beggar, pleading and desperate. You stop resenting it as an enemy, blaming it for your problems. You stop fearing it as a dangerous force that corrupts and destroys. Instead, you recognize money as a neutral symbol, a tool, a medium of exchange that allows the circulation of value in physical form. The paper itself has no power. It is simply the agreed-upon token that represents energy, time, creativity, and service. When you understand this, you can handle money without emotional distortion, without the charge of desperation or greed. You become like a banker who counts millions of dollars with complete detachment, knowing that the paper is simply paper and the real wealth is the consciousness that commands its flow. Murphy taught that the feeling of wealth must precede its physical appearance. This is the sequence that most people reverse, creating their ongoing poverty. They say, "When I have money, then I will feel wealthy." This is backwards causation, attempting to make the effect produce the cause. The correct sequence is, "I feel wealthy now and therefore money must appear." The feeling is the cause, the money is the effect. Your subconscious responds to feeling, not to logic or reasoning. It does not care about your current bank balance or your employment status. It only registers the emotional tone you are broadcasting, and it manifests conditions that match that tone. If you feel poor, worried, anxious about money, your subconscious interprets this as your desired state and perpetuates it faithfully. Therefore, the primary technique Murphy prescribed is the deliberate cultivation of the feeling of wealth before any external evidence supports it. This is not self-deception. This is the proper use of imagination as the creative faculty. You must imagine yourself into the state of wealth. Feel what it would feel like to have abundant resources. Adopt the mental atmosphere of financial security and freedom. This is not pretending. This is impressing a new pattern on the subconscious, providing it with a new blueprint to manifest. The subconscious is completely literal and completely obedient. It will manifest whatever you feel most deeply and consistently. If you feel wealthy, you will become wealthy. If you feel poor, you will remain poor. The feeling is the command, the condition is the response. This principle explains why lottery winners often return to poverty within a few years. They receive the money, but they do not have the consciousness of wealth. Their subconscious still carries the pattern of poverty, the identity of someone who struggles financially. The money is an external gift that contradicts their internal state, and the internal state always wins. The subconscious will find ways to eliminate the money, to restore the familiar condition of lack, because it is operating on the old blueprint. True wealth requires the transformation of consciousness first, the establishment of a wealthy identity at the subconscious level. Once this is accomplished, the money appears naturally and stays permanently because it is now the outer reflection of an inner reality. Murphy insisted that you must accept your wealth now in this moment, regardless of current circumstances. This is the meaning of faith in his system, not blind belief in something you hope will happen, but present tense acceptance of something that already exists in the invisible realm and is now moving into visibility. You do not have faith that you will breathe tomorrow. You simply breathe now, knowing that breath is available. Apply this same certainty to wealth. It is available now. The supply is infinite now. Your access to it is open now. The only thing preventing its manifestation is your insistence on judging by appearances, on accepting the current condition as the final truth. Murphy taught that appearances are temporary and changeable. Consciousness is causal and creative. Stop giving power to appearances. Start giving power to your chosen state of consciousness. The transformation from poverty to wealth, then, is not a long, difficult journey requiring years of struggle and sacrifice. It is an instantaneous shift in perspective, a change in the lens through which you view reality. The moment you truly accept that you are wealthy in consciousness, that you are connected to infinite supply, that you are a channel through which divine abundance flows, the physical evidence begins to rearrange itself to match. Opportunities appear. Ideas come. Contacts are made. Money arrives through unexpected channels. This is not magic, this is law. You have changed the cause, and the effect must change correspondingly. Murphy proved this principle thousands of times in his ministry, working with individuals who transformed from poverty to prosperity through nothing more than the correction of their mental patterns. The key is consistency. You must maintain the consciousness of wealth even when the mail brings bills, even when the bank account shows a small balance, even when circumstances seem to contradict your claim. This is the test of your understanding. If you allow appearances to dictate your consciousness, you remain trapped in the cycle of poverty. If you allow consciousness to dictate appearances, you break free. Murphy called this living from the end, maintaining the feeling of the wish fulfilled before the evidence appears. This is the secret of all manifestation, the master key that unlocks every door. Feel it now, and it must appear later. This is law. This is the foundation upon which all wealth is built. Murphy used the analogy of the bloodstream to illustrate the law of circulation with perfect clarity. Money is the economic blood of the world, the vital fluid that carries nutrients to every cell of society, enabling exchange, growth, and life. If your blood circulates freely throughout your body, you experience health, vitality, and strength. Every organ receives what it needs. Every cell is nourished. Every system functions optimally. But if circulation stops, if blood flow is restricted or blocked, you experience disease, weakness, and eventually death. The same principle governs money with absolute precision. Money must circulate to fulfill its function. It must move through your life in a continuous flow, coming in and going out in rhythmic exchange. Hoarding money is the financial equivalent of trying to stop your blood from circulating. When you grip money tightly in fear, when you refuse to spend or invest because you are terrified of loss, you create coagulation. The flow stops. The money becomes stagnant, and stagnant energy always decays. Murphy observed that people who hoard money out of fear rarely increase their wealth. Instead, they experience unexpected expenses, emergencies, and losses that drain their hoarded reserves. The subconscious, operating on the law of circulation, will create circumstances that force the money to move because stagnation violates natural law. The universe demands flow. Energy must circulate or it dies. Fearing the loss of money is equally destructive to circulation. Fear is the emotional signal that tells your subconscious you believe in scarcity, that you accept lack as reality, that you do not trust the supply to continue. When you operate from fear, you contract. Your consciousness tightens. Your mental arteries constrict. The subconscious, receiving this signal of constriction, manifests conditions that match it. You begin to experience exactly what you fear: loss, lack, and limitation. This is not punishment. This is law. You are instructing your creative faculty through your emotional state, and it is responding with perfect obedience. Fear of poverty creates poverty with the same reliability that fear of illness often produces illness. The law of opulence, as Murphy defined it, requires flow. It requires that you be open to both the influx and the outflux, the receiving and the giving, the accumulation and the release. You must develop what he called the open hand, the consciousness that allows money to move through you freely, without desperate grasping or fearful withholding. When money comes to you, you receive it with gratitude, but without attachment. When money leaves you, you release it with blessing, but without regret. This is the posture of mastery. You are not the owner of the money, you are the steward, the channel, the instrument through which it flows to accomplish its purpose. This principle of circulation explains why generous people often become wealthy while misers remain poor. The generous person keeps the channel open. By giving freely, by spending with joy, by investing in others, they signal to the subconscious that they trust the supply, that they believe in abundance, that they expect the flow to continue. The subconscious responds to this signal by manifesting more money to flow through the channel. The miser, conversely, closes the channel through fear and greed. By refusing to spend, by hoarding every dollar, by treating money as a scarce resource that must be protected, they signal poverty consciousness. The subconscious responds by restricting the flow, creating the very scarcity they fear. Murphy emphasized that you must give money in order to receive it, not as a superstitious ritual, but as an application of the law of circulation. When you give, you create a vacuum that must be filled. Nature abhors a vacuum. The universe rushes to fill empty space. By releasing money freely, you create space for more money to enter. This is not charity in the traditional sense. This is scientific giving, the deliberate use of the law of circulation to maintain and increase your flow. You give knowing that you will receive, not from the person or organization you give to, but from the universe itself through channels you cannot predict or control. The circulation must be voluntary and joyful to activate the law correctly. If you give reluctantly, if you spend money while feeling resentment or fear, you are sending mixed signals to your subconscious. The action says abundance, but the emotion says scarcity. The subconscious always responds to the emotion, not the action. Therefore, forced giving or fearful spending actually reinforces poverty rather than dissolving it. You must give and spend from a consciousness of abundance, feeling that you have plenty, trusting that more is coming, blessing the money as it leaves your hand. This emotional tone activates the law of circulation and ensures the return flow. Murphy taught that you should never say, "I cannot afford it," because this statement is a direct poverty command to your subconscious. Every time you speak these words, you impress the pattern of lack more deeply into your creative faculty. You are literally programming yourself for poverty. Instead, Murphy instructed his students to reverse the statement immediately. When you see something you desire but cannot currently purchase, do not declare your inability. Instead, say mentally, "I buy it in my mind, and I accept it in consciousness." This keeps the channel open. This maintains the feeling of abundance, even when the physical evidence is not yet present. The practice of mental purchasing is a powerful technique for dissolving poverty consciousness. When you window shop, when you see beautiful things you desire, do not torture yourself with feelings of deprivation. Do not say, "I can never have that." Instead, claim it mentally. See yourself owning it. Feel the satisfaction of possession. This is not foolish fantasy. This is the proper use of imagination to impress your subconscious with abundance rather than lack. The subconscious does not distinguish between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. Both create the same emotional impression, and emotion is the language of the subconscious. By consistently practicing mental ownership, by claiming in consciousness what you desire in physical form, you gradually shift your identity from poor person to wealthy person. This shift in identity is the crucial transformation. You must see yourself as wealthy before you can become wealthy. You must feel yourself as abundant before abundance can manifest. Murphy insisted that identity precedes experience in all cases. You do not become wealthy and then adopt a wealthy identity. You adopt a wealthy identity and then become wealthy. This is the sequence, the order of operations that most people reverse, condemning themselves to perpetual poverty. The bloodstream analogy also reveals why sudden windfalls often disappear quickly. If someone with poverty consciousness receives a large sum of money, it is like a massive transfusion of blood into a system with restricted circulation. The system cannot handle the influx because the channels are too narrow, the consciousness too constricted. The subconscious, operating on its established pattern of poverty, will find ways to eliminate the excess, to restore the familiar condition of lack. This is why Murphy insisted that consciousness must be changed first, before large amounts of money can be handled successfully. You must expand your mental arteries, open your channels of circulation, establish the identity of wealth at the subconscious level. Once this internal work is complete, once your consciousness is truly transformed, money flows to you naturally and remains with you permanently. You have the capacity to receive it because your channels are open. You have the wisdom to use it because your identity is aligned with abundance. You have the trust to circulate it because you know the supply is infinite. This is the state of financial mastery Murphy described, where money becomes a servant rather than a master, a tool rather than a tyrant, a symbol rather than a source. You are no longer enslaved to money because you understand its true nature. You are free to use it for the purposes of life, creativity, service, and joy. The cure for poverty, then, is the restoration of circulation. You must dissolve the clots of fear, greed, and belief in limitation. You must open the mental arteries through which divine substance flows. You must establish the rhythm of receiving and giving, accumulation and release, influx and outflux. When this circulation is restored, poverty vanishes as inevitably as darkness vanishes when light is introduced. The disease is cured not by acquiring money, but by changing the consciousness that prevented money from flowing. This is Murphy's revolutionary insight. Poverty is not a condition of the wallet, but a condition of the mind, and any condition of the mind can be changed through the proper application of mental law. The required mental state for wealth manifestation is what Murphy called friendship with money, a relationship of ease, appreciation, and trust rather than fear, resentment, or worship. Most people exist in a state of profound conflict with money, simultaneously desiring it desperately while harboring deep suspicions about its nature and effects. They want money but believe it is evil. They need money but think wealthy people are corrupt. They pursue money but feel guilty when they obtain it. This internal contradiction creates a frequency of repulsion disguised as attraction. The subconscious receives mixed signals and produces mixed results. Brief periods of increase followed by mysterious losses, opportunities that appear and then vanish. A perpetual cycle of almost but not quite that characterizes the financially frustrated. You cannot attract what you secretly criticize or condemn. This is a fundamental law of consciousness that Murphy emphasized repeatedly. If you harbor negative judgments about money, if you believe it corrupts people, or that wealthy individuals are greedy and selfish, you are commanding your subconscious to keep you poor as a form of protection. Your creative faculty interprets your criticism of wealth as a request to be shielded from it. The subconscious is your faithful guardian, and if you have convinced it that money is dangerous or immoral, it will guard you against acquiring it. This is why so many people who claim to want wealth engage in unconscious behaviors that sabotage their financial success. They are protecting themselves from something they have defined as threatening. The process of making peace with money requires a complete examination and reversal of your beliefs about wealth. You must identify every negative association you carry, every critical thought you have about rich people, every suspicious feeling you harbor about the nature of money itself. These beliefs are the invisible walls that contain your poverty. Murphy taught that you must consciously and deliberately replace each negative belief with its positive opposite. Where you believed money corrupts, you must now affirm that money amplifies character. Where you believed wealthy people are greedy, you must now recognize that wealth enables generosity. Where you believed the pursuit of money is selfish, you must now understand that prosperity allows you to serve others more effectively. This is not self-deception or denial of reality. This is the correction of false programming. The negative beliefs about money are not truth. They are learned prejudices, cultural conditioning, religious distortions that have been impressed upon your consciousness since childhood. You absorbed these beliefs from parents who struggled financially, from religious teachings that glorified poverty as virtue, from social narratives that portrayed wealth as inherently corrupting. None of these beliefs are based on universal law. They are based on the limited experiences and misunderstandings of people who themselves were trapped in poverty consciousness. You are not obligated to carry forward their limitations. You have the power and the right to choose new beliefs that serve your prosperity. Murphy instructed his students to actively cultivate positive feelings toward money through a practice of conscious appreciation. Look at money with gratitude rather than anxiety. When you handle cash or write a check, bless it silently. Recognize it as a symbol of the infinite supply that sustains you. Thank it for the service it provides in facilitating exchange and enabling you to acquire what you need and desire. This practice may seem strange at first, but it is the deliberate rewiring of your emotional response to money. You are training yourself to feel good about money, rather than stressed, anxious, or conflicted. The subconscious responds to feeling, and when you consistently feel positive about money, you magnetize it toward yourself. Friendship with money also means releasing the worship of it. Money must be your servant, not your master. If you are obsessed with money, if you think about it constantly with desperate need, if you have made it your god, you are in bondage to it. Murphy taught that you must maintain a balanced relationship with money, appreciating it without worshipping it, using it without being used by it, desiring it without being enslaved to it. This balance comes from understanding that money is a tool, a means to an end, not the end itself. The true wealth is consciousness, freedom, peace of mind, and the ability to express your creative potential. Money is simply the physical resource that supports these higher values. The practice of mental preparation involves a daily discipline of affirming your friendship with money. You might say, "Money is my friend. I appreciate money. I use money wisely and joyfully. Money flows to me easily and naturally. I am at peace with money, and money is at peace with me." These affirmations, repeated with feeling and conviction, gradually dissolve the old patterns of conflict and establish a new pattern of harmony. The subconscious begins to accept money as a welcome presence rather than a problematic force. This internal shift creates an external shift in your financial circumstances because your consciousness has changed the signal it is broadcasting. Murphy also emphasized the importance of studying the lives of wealthy people who use their resources constructively. Read biographies of philanthropists, inventors, entrepreneurs who created wealth and used it to benefit humanity. This practice serves two purposes. It provides evidence that wealth can be virtuous, dissolving your negative associations, and it gives you models to emulate, impressing your subconscious with successful patterns. You begin to see that wealth in the hands of conscious, ethical people is a tremendous force for good. This realization removes the guilt and fear that have been blocking your own prosperity. The mental preparation phase is not complete until you can think about money without emotional distortion. You should be able to see a wealthy person without envy or resentment. You should be able to handle large sums of money without anxiety or excessive excitement. You should be able to spend money without guilt and receive money without unworthiness. This emotional neutrality combined with positive appreciation is the sign that you have achieved friendship with money. Your subconscious is now clear to manifest wealth because all internal obstacles have been removed. The channel is open, the frequency is clean, and the flow can begin. Many people skip this preparatory phase and wonder why affirmations and techniques do not work for them. They are trying to build on a foundation of conflict and contradiction. Murphy insisted that you must first establish the right relationship with money before you can successfully apply manifestation techniques. It is like trying to fill a bucket with holes in it. No matter how much water you pour in, it drains out through the holes of negative belief. You must first patch the holes, establish the integrity of the container, and then the filling can occur. The mental preparation is the patching of holes, the removal of contradictions, the establishment of a consciousness that can receive and retain wealth. This phase requires honesty and courage. You must be willing to confront your hidden beliefs, your secret judgments, your unconscious programming about money. Many of these beliefs are operating below the level of conscious awareness, which is why they are so powerful. They are the invisible saboteurs, the hidden commands that contradict your conscious desires. Murphy taught that you must bring these beliefs into the light of conscious examination, question their validity, and deliberately replace them with beliefs that support your prosperity. This is the work of mental house cleaning, and it is absolutely essential for lasting financial transformation. The reward for this work is a profound sense of freedom and peace regarding money. When you have truly made friends with money, when you have released all conflict and established harmony, you experience a lightness and ease that is itself a form of wealth. You are no longer driven by desperate need or haunted by fear of loss. You handle money calmly, make financial decisions clearly, and trust the flow implicitly. This state of consciousness is magnetic to wealth because it broadcasts confidence, abundance, and trust. The universe responds to this signal by directing resources toward you through multiple channels, often in ways you could never have predicted or arranged through conscious effort alone. The execution of Murphy's wealth treatment is a precise protocol consisting of 3 distinct steps, each designed to impress the subconscious mind with the pattern of abundance and activate the law of circulation. This is not casual positive thinking or vague hoping for improvement. This is systematic mental work that produces measurable results when applied with consistency and understanding. The first step Murphy prescribed is what he called the cleansing, the immediate and complete cessation of negative financial language. You must stop saying "I can't afford it" immediately and permanently. This phrase is a direct poverty command that you are giving to your subconscious every time you speak it. The words carry emotional conviction, and the subconscious accepts them as instructions for your financial reality. Every time you declare your inability to afford something, you are reinforcing the identity of a poor person, someone who lacks resources and is limited by circumstances. You are programming poverty deeper into your consciousness with each repetition. Murphy taught that language is not merely descriptive, it is creative. Your words shape your reality by shaping your consciousness, which in turn shapes your experience. Therefore, you must guard your speech about money with absolute vigilance. Never finish a negative statement about your finances. The moment you catch yourself beginning to say something limiting about money, stop mid-sentence and reverse it. This may feel awkward at first, but it is essential mental discipline. The reversal technique Murphy taught is simple but powerful. Whenever you see something you desire but cannot currently purchase, instead of declaring your lack, you say mentally, "I buy it in my mind and I accept it in consciousness." This statement keeps your consciousness in the realm of abundance rather than lack. You are not denying physical reality, you are refusing to give it ultimate power. You are asserting that consciousness is primary and conditions are secondary. By claiming ownership in the mental realm, you set in motion the forces that will eventually manifest the physical equivalent. The subconscious begins working on the problem of how to bring you the money or the object, rather than accepting your declaration of impossibility as final truth. This cleansing of language must extend to all financial discussions. Stop complaining about bills. Stop discussing how expensive things are with a tone of resentment or overwhelm. Stop participating in conversations where people commiserate about their poverty or criticize the economy. These conversations are group poverty treatments, collective affirmations of lack that reinforce the disease in everyone who participates. Murphy advised his students to either redirect such conversations towards solutions and possibilities or remove themselves from the conversation entirely. You cannot afford to marinate your consciousness in negativity about money if you are serious about curing your poverty. The second step in the protocol is the use of Murphy's famous affirmation formula to be practiced for 5 minutes before sleep. This timing is crucial because the period just before sleep is when the conscious mind relaxes its guard and the subconscious becomes highly receptive to suggestion. In this twilight state between waking and sleeping, impressions sink deeply into the creative faculty with minimal resistance. Murphy's specific formula is, "I like money, I love it, I use it wisely, constructively, and judiciously. Money is constantly circulating in my life. I release it with joy, and it returns to me multiplied 1,000-fold." These words must be repeated slowly, with feeling, with conviction, allowing each phrase to resonate in your consciousness. The affirmation is carefully constructed to address multiple aspects of the poverty disease. "I like money, I love it," establishes friendship and positive feeling. "I use it wisely, constructively, and judiciously," removes guilt by affirming responsible stewardship. "Money is constantly circulating in my life," impresses the pattern of flow rather than stagnation. "I release it with joy," dissolves fear and hoarding. "It returns to me multiplied 1,000-fold," establishes expectation of increase and abundance. Each element of the formula serves a specific purpose in reprogramming the subconscious from poverty to prosperity. You are not merely repeating words, you are implanting a new operating system in your creative faculty. The practice must be done with emotional engagement, not mechanical repetition. Feel the truth of the words as you speak them. Imagine money circulating through your life like a river. Feel the joy of releasing it. Feel the confidence of its return. The emotion is what carries the words into the subconscious. Words without feeling are like seeds without water. They cannot germinate. Murphy emphasized that you must feel the reality of what you are affirming for the technique to work. This is the difference between effective mental treatment and useless positive thinking. The feeling is the fertilizer that allows the seed of the affirmation to take root and grow in the fertile soil of the subconscious. The third step Murphy prescribed is what he called the identity shift. the practice of walking through your day, imagining that you already possess millions of dollars. This is not fantasy or escapism. This is the deliberate adoption of the consciousness of wealth before the physical evidence appears. You must ask yourself, how would I feel if I had abundant financial resources? The answer is crucial. You would feel calm, secure, confident, free from anxiety. You would not be stressed about bills or worried about the future. You would move through the world with a sense of ease and possibility. This is the feeling state you must cultivate now, regardless of your current bank balance. Murphy called this the atmosphere of wealth, and he taught that this atmosphere is the signal that commands your subconscious to manifest corresponding conditions. Your subconscious does not care about your actual bank balance. It only registers the emotional atmosphere you're broadcasting. If you broadcast anxiety and lack, it manifests more conditions to be anxious about. If you broadcast confidence and abundance, it manifests conditions that justify that confidence. Therefore, you must consciously adopt the emotional tone of wealth, the inner atmosphere of financial security, before the external evidence supports it. This is the meaning of faith in Murphy's system, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled before the manifestation occurs. The practice of walking as a wealthy person means making small changes in how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you make decisions. A wealthy person does not rush frantically or speak in apologetic tones. A wealthy person moves with deliberation and speaks with authority. You must embody this demeanor now, not as pretense but as practice, as the rehearsal of your new identity. When you make a purchase, even a small one, do it with the consciousness of abundance rather than scarcity. Feel that you have plenty, that this expenditure is insignificant relative to your resources. This feeling impresses the subconscious with wealth rather than poverty. Murphy taught that you should also practice mental generosity, imagining yourself giving large sums to worthy causes, helping family members financially, creating opportunities for others through your wealth. This mental practice serves multiple purposes. It keeps you in the consciousness of abundance. It removes any guilt about desiring wealth by linking it to service, and it programs your subconscious to manifest the resources necessary to fulfill these generous intentions. The subconscious takes your imaginal acts as seriously as physical acts and begins arranging circumstances to make them possible. The identity shift is complete when you can maintain the feeling of wealth consistently, even when confronted with bills, even when your bank account is low, even when circumstances seem to contradict your claim. This is the test of your mastery. Can you hold the consciousness of abundance in the face of apparent lack? Can you maintain the atmosphere of wealth when the physical evidence suggests poverty? If you can do this, you have achieved the mental state that compels manifestation. The subconscious has no choice but to externalize what you have internalized. The law is exact and impersonal. Change, the inner and the outer must follow. Murphy emphasized that this is not self-deception or denial of facts. You are not pretending that bills do not exist or that your bank account shows a different number than it does. You are simply refusing to accept the current condition as permanent or ultimate. You are asserting the primacy of consciousness over conditions. You are living from the end, maintaining the feeling of the wish fulfilled, knowing that the physical manifestation is already in motion in the invisible realm and will appear in the visible realm at the right time. This is the meaning of mental causation. You cause with your mind and effects follow in the physical world. The post-technique practice Murphy prescribed is equally important to the main protocol. When you spend money, you must not feel loss or depletion. This is crucial. Most people experience a pang of pain or anxiety when money leaves their possession, and this feeling is a poverty command to the subconscious. It says, "I have less now. I am being diminished. I am moving toward lack." The subconscious receives this signal and manifests more experiences of loss and depletion. Murphy taught that you must reverse this reaction completely. When money leaves your hand, you must feel that you are circulating good, that you are setting energy in motion, that you are creating a vacuum that will be filled with increase. The specific practice is to bless the money as it leaves your possession. Whether you are paying a bill, buying groceries, or giving a gift, silently bless the money and the recipient. Say mentally, "I bless this money," and release it with joy, knowing it will return to me multiplied. Feel genuine goodwill toward the money and where it is going. This feeling keeps the channel of circulation open. It maintains the consciousness of abundance even in the act of spending. It signals to your subconscious that you trust the flow, that you believe in the infinite supply, that you expect the return with certainty. Murphy also taught that you should never pay bills with resentment or feel victimized by expenses. Bills are simply requests for the circulation of energy in exchange for goods or services you have received. When you pay them, you are completing an exchange, fulfilling an agreement, keeping energy moving through the economic system. If you pay with resentment, you poison the transaction and create resistance in your consciousness. If you pay with gratitude for what you received and confidence in your ability to pay, you keep the flow clean and strong. The emotional tone with which you handle money is as important as the handling itself. The complete wealth treatment protocol, when practiced consistently, produces a fundamental transformation in consciousness that inevitably manifests as improved financial conditions. You are not trying to manipulate external circumstances directly. You are changing the internal state that creates external circumstances. This is the essence of Murphy's teaching. Consciousness is cause, conditions are effect. Master your consciousness, and you master your conditions. The techniques are simply tools to help you gain that mastery, to impress the subconscious with the pattern of wealth so deeply that it becomes your automatic, habitual state of being. The fatal mistakes that destroy wealth manifestation are subtle saboteurs that operate largely below conscious awareness, which is precisely what makes them so destructive. Murphy identified these errors with clinical precision, understanding that most people are unconsciously programming poverty even while consciously desiring wealth. The first and most devastating mistake, the wealth blocker that was promised earlier, is the act of resenting the rich. This single emotional pattern has kept more people in poverty than any external circumstance or economic condition. When you see someone driving a Ferrari, living in a mansion, or displaying obvious signs of wealth, your immediate emotional reaction is a direct command to your subconscious about whether you will be allowed to experience similar abundance. If your reaction is envy, resentment, or criticism, if you think to yourself, "He probably stole that money," or "She must have exploited people to get that rich," or "Wealthy people are greedy and selfish," you have just signed a contract of poverty with your own subconscious mind. You are telling your creative faculty that wealth is bad, that wealthy people are corrupt, that having money makes you a villain. The subconscious, which is designed to protect you and give you what you truly believe you want, receives this message clearly. Wealth is dangerous and immoral. Keep me away from it. Your subconscious responds with perfect obedience. Understood. I will keep you poor to keep you good. I will protect you from the corruption of wealth by ensuring you never acquire it. This is not metaphor or exaggeration. This is the precise mechanism by which resentment of wealth creates poverty. The subconscious cannot distinguish between wealth that belongs to someone else and wealth that might belong to you. When you condemn wealth in any form, you condemn it in all forms, including your own potential wealth. When you judge wealthy people as corrupt or greedy, you are establishing a belief that becoming wealthy means becoming corrupt or greedy. Since your self-image likely includes being a good person, and your subconscious is committed to maintaining consistency with your self-image, it will block your wealth to preserve your goodness. You have created an impossible contradiction. You want money, but you believe money makes people bad, so you cannot have money without violating your identity as a good person. Murphy taught that the antidote to this poison is the practice of blessing what you desire to possess. When you see a Ferrari, you must train yourself to think, "I bless that person's abundance, I rejoice in their success, I claim similar prosperity for myself." This is not forced or fake positivity. This is the strategic use of your emotional response to program abundance rather than lack. By blessing the wealth of others, you are telling your subconscious that wealth is good, that wealthy people deserve their prosperity, that you approve of abundance and want to experience it yourself. The subconscious receives this message and begins working to manifest similar conditions in your life. because you have removed the moral objection that was blocking the flow. This practice must become automatic and consistent. Every time you encounter evidence of wealth, whether in person, in media, or in your environment, you must consciously choose the response of blessing rather than resentment. At first, this will feel unnatural because your habitual pattern is probably criticism or envy. You will need to catch yourself mid-thought and consciously redirect your reaction. But with practice, blessing becomes your automatic response, and when this happens, you have removed one of the most powerful blocks to your own prosperity. You have aligned yourself vibrationally with wealth rather than against it, and the law of attraction must respond by drawing wealth toward you. The second fatal mistake Murphy identified is what he called the rainy day trap, the practice of saving money specifically for disaster or emergency. This seems prudent on the surface, but it is actually a sophisticated form of poverty programming. When you save money for a rainy day, when you set aside funds in case something goes wrong, when you prepare financially for catastrophe, you are impressing your subconscious with expectation of disaster. You are affirming that bad things will happen, that emergencies are inevitable, that you need to be prepared for loss and difficulty. The subconscious, which is completely literal and takes your dominant expectations as instructions, will then create the disasters you are preparing for so that you can use the money you have saved. This is not punishment or bad luck. This is law. Your subconscious manifests what you expect with emotional conviction. If you are emotionally invested in preparing for disaster, you are investing in disaster. Murphy observed this pattern repeatedly. People who saved for emergencies consistently experienced emergencies that consumed their savings. The car breaks down. The medical bill arrives. The unexpected expense appears. It seems like bad luck, but it is actually the faithful response of the subconscious to the pattern that has been impressed upon it. You programmed for disaster by saving for disaster, and the subconscious delivered the disaster, so your preparation would be justified. The correction Murphy prescribed is to change the purpose and feeling of your savings. Do not save for rainy days or emergencies. Save for unexpected opportunities. Save with the consciousness of expansion and possibility, rather than contraction and fear. Feel that you are accumulating resources that will allow you to take advantage of wonderful opportunities when they appear. A chance to invest in a promising venture, an opportunity to travel, a possibility to help someone you care about in a meaningful way. This shift in purpose and feeling completely changes what you are programming into your subconscious. You are now expecting good things, preparing for expansion, anticipating opportunities rather than disasters. When you save with this consciousness, your subconscious manifests opportunities rather than emergencies. The investment possibility appears. The chance to expand your business presents itself. The opportunity to purchase something valuable at a discount emerges. Your savings are used for growth and increase rather than damage control and loss. This is the same money, the same act of saving, but the consciousness behind it is completely different, and therefore the results are completely different. Murphy taught that the feeling and purpose behind an action determine its effects far more than the action itself. Two people can save money, but if one is saving in fear and the other in expectation of good, they will have radically different experiences. Murphy also warned against the practice of insurance when it is purchased from a consciousness of fear rather than wisdom. Insurance itself is not the problem. The consciousness with which you purchase it determines its effect. If you buy insurance while dwelling on all the terrible things that might happen, if you are emotionally invested in worry and catastrophic thinking, you are programming disaster. If you buy insurance as a simple, practical measure without emotional charge, recognizing it as a tool of financial management rather than a shield against inevitable doom, it serves its purpose without creating negative effects. The key is always the consciousness, the feeling, the emotional atmosphere surrounding the action. The practice of blessing your expenses, which was mentioned in the previous section, is especially important in correcting the rainy day trap. When you do experience an unexpected expense, do not curse it or feel victimized by it. Bless it as evidence that you have resources to handle life's variations. Feel grateful that you have the money to pay the bill, rather than resentful that the bill appeared. This response keeps you in abundance consciousness, even when money is flowing out. It prevents the downward spiral of resentment and fear that creates more financial problems. Murphy taught that your reaction to financial challenges is more important than the challenges themselves in determining your financial future. The third common mistake, though not as dramatic as the first two, is the practice of constantly checking your bank balance with anxiety. This seems like responsible financial management, but when done from a consciousness of fear and worry, it becomes a poverty affirmation. Every time you check your balance with the feeling of "do I have enough?" or "is there going to be enough?" you are affirming lack and scarcity. You are treating your bank balance as the source of your supply rather than as a temporary snapshot of your current financial position. Murphy taught that your source is not your bank account, not your job, not your investments. Your source is the infinite supply of the universe channeled through your consciousness. The bank account is simply the current physical representation of your consciousness, and consciousness can be changed instantly. Instead of checking your balance with anxiety, Murphy advised checking it with the consciousness of a wealthy person reviewing their accounts. A wealthy person does not check their balance wondering if they have enough. They check to see how much they have accumulated, with the expectation that it is always increasing. Adopt this same mental posture. When you look at your bank balance, regardless of the number, say mentally, "This is increasing. My supply is infinite. This number is temporary and moving upward." This response keeps you in the consciousness of abundance rather than lack, even when the physical evidence is not yet impressive. Murphy's master tips for sustaining wealth consciousness are distilled from decades of working with thousands of individuals who successfully transformed their financial conditions through mental methods. The first and most fundamental principle he emphasized is captured in his direct statement. It is your right to be rich. You are here to lead the abundant life and to be happy, radiant, and free. You should, therefore, have all the money you need to lead a full, happy, prosperous life. This is not permission or encouragement. This is a declaration of metaphysical fact. Wealth is your birthright, your natural inheritance as a child of an infinite creator. Poverty is the violation of your nature, the denial of your divine heritage. Murphy insisted that you must claim this right consciously and repeatedly until it becomes your automatic assumption. You must override the false humility, the religious programming, the cultural conditioning that tells you it is noble to be poor or greedy to desire wealth. These beliefs are lies that keep you imprisoned in limitation. The truth is that you cannot help the poor by being one of them. You cannot serve the world from a position of lack. You cannot express your full creative potential when you are consumed with worry about survival. Wealth is not selfish. It is necessary for you to fulfill your purpose and contribute your gifts to the world. The second master principle Murphy taught is to make friends with the mammon of unrighteousness, a biblical phrase he interpreted to mean making peace with money as a tool and symbol. Money itself is neutral, neither good nor evil. It is simply a medium of exchange, a way to transfer value in physical form. The unrighteousness is not in the money, but in the consciousness with which it is used. Money in the hands of a person with poverty consciousness becomes a source of anxiety and eventual loss. Money in the hands of a person with wealth consciousness becomes a tool for creation, service, and blessing. You must befriend money, understand its nature, and learn to use it as the powerful tool it is. Murphy emphasized that you must develop what he called money consciousness, which is different from greed or materialism. Money consciousness is the awareness that you live in an abundant universe, that supply is infinite, that you are connected to this supply through your consciousness, and that money flows to you naturally when your consciousness is aligned with abundance. This is not obsession with money. It is recognition of money as one form of energy in a universe of infinite energy. You do not worship money, but you do not reject it either. You accept it, appreciate it, and use it as one of many tools for living a full and creative life. The third master tip is to practice what Murphy called the law of use. He taught that you must use what you have, circulate what you possess, and invest your resources actively rather than hoarding them in fear. Money that sits idle tends to diminish in value and effect. Money that circulates tends to multiply and increase. This is not reckless spending. This is wise stewardship that recognizes the principle of circulation. You must be willing to invest in yourself, in your education, in your business, in opportunities that present themselves. Fear of loss that prevents you from using your resources is actually the surest way to create loss, because you are violating the law of circulation. Murphy taught that you should regularly examine your financial beliefs and practices to identify any remaining traces of poverty consciousness. Ask yourself, do I feel guilty when I spend money on myself? Do I apologize for my prices or fees? Do I feel uncomfortable discussing money? Do I avoid looking at my finances because it creates anxiety? Each of these reactions is a symptom of poverty consciousness that needs to be addressed and corrected. The goal is to reach a state where you can handle money, discuss money, spend money, receive money, and think about money without emotional distortion or discomfort. The fourth master principle is the practice of tithing or systematic giving, not as religious obligation but as application of the law of circulation. Murphy taught that you should give a percentage of your income regularly to causes, organizations, or individuals that inspire you or provide spiritual nourishment. This practice keeps the channel of circulation open, signals abundance to your subconscious, and creates a vacuum that must be filled by incoming supply. The amount is less important than the consistency and the consciousness with which you give. Give joyfully, expecting nothing in return from the recipient but knowing that the universe will return your gift multiplied through channels you cannot predict. Murphy also emphasized the importance of expressing gratitude for your current financial position, regardless of how limited it might seem. Gratitude is the emotional frequency that magnetizes increase. When you are grateful for what you have, you signal to your subconscious that you are experiencing abundance, and the subconscious manifests more conditions to be grateful for. When you complain about what you lack, you signal scarcity, and the subconscious manifests more lack. Therefore, make it a daily practice to list the ways in which you are already wealthy. You have food, shelter, clothing, health, relationships, opportunities, ideas, creativity. This practice shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present, and this shift in focus creates a shift in manifestation. The fifth master tip Murphy provided is to maintain a prosperity journal, where you record every evidence of increase in your life, no matter how small. Did you find a coin on the street? Record it as evidence of supply. Did someone buy you coffee? Record it as evidence of circulation. Did you receive a compliment or an unexpected opportunity? Record it as evidence that the universe is responding to your wealth consciousness. This practice trains your mind to notice abundance rather than lack, to focus on what is flowing toward you rather than what is absent. Over time, this shift in attention creates a dramatic shift in manifestation, because you are programming your subconscious to expect and recognize increase. Murphy taught that you should also practice mental rehearsal of financial success. Spend time each day imagining yourself handling large sums of money with ease, making wise investments, receiving substantial income, living in beautiful surroundings, and using your wealth to bless others. This mental rehearsal is not idle daydreaming. It is the impression of successful patterns on your subconscious mind. The subconscious does not distinguish between a real experience and a vividly imagined one, so your mental rehearsals are actual practice sessions that prepare you to handle real wealth when it manifests. You are training yourself for success before the success appears in physical form. The final master principle Murphy emphasized is patience combined with persistence. Wealth consciousness is not built overnight. Especially if you have spent years or decades in poverty consciousness, you are rewiring deeply embedded patterns, dissolving beliefs that have been reinforced thousands of times. This requires consistent daily practice of the techniques, not sporadic effort when you feel motivated. Murphy taught that you must persist in your mental work even when external evidence has not yet changed, trusting that consciousness is cause and conditions are effect. The lag time between changing your consciousness and seeing results in your circumstances is the test of your faith and understanding. Those who persist through this lag time achieve permanent transformation. Those who give up when immediate results do not appear remain trapped in poverty. The connection between Murphy's mental wealth principles and established scientific laws provides powerful validation for what might otherwise seem like mystical speculation. The law of circulation that Murphy described is directly parallel to principles in economics, physics, and biology that have been verified through rigorous study and observation. In economics, the velocity of money is a recognized metric that measures the rate at which money changes hands in an economy. Economists have observed that when money circulates rapidly, economies thrive and expand. When circulation slows, when money becomes concentrated and stagnant, economies contract and decline. This is not theory. This is documented observation of how economic systems function. Murphy's teaching that money must flow through your life rather than stagnate in fearful hoarding is the personal application of this macroeconomic principle. Just as a healthy economy requires rapid circulation of currency, a healthy personal financial situation requires the free flow of money in and out. The person who hoards money in fear is like an economy in recession, where money stops moving and vitality drains from the system. The person who circulates money wisely, spending and receiving in natural rhythm, is like a thriving economy where energy moves freely and creates growth. This parallel between personal finance and macroeconomics validates Murphy's insistence on the law of circulation as a fundamental principle of prosperity. In physics, the principle that energy must move to do work is fundamental and universally accepted. Static energy, potential energy that remains trapped without movement, accomplishes nothing. Only when energy moves, when it transforms from potential to kinetic, does it perform work and create effects in the physical world. Murphy applied this exact principle to consciousness and money. Thoughts that remain static, wishes that are never acted upon, money that sits idle in hoarding, all represent potential energy that accomplishes nothing. The movement, the circulation, the transformation from potential to kinetic is what creates manifestation. You must move your thoughts into feeling, your feelings into action, your money into circulation for the energy to do its work. The concept of flow states in psychology also validates Murphy's emphasis on mental fluidity and circulation. Psychologists have identified that peak performance and creativity occur when individuals are in a state of flow, where energy and attention move freely without obstruction or resistance. When consciousness becomes rigid, stuck, or blocked, performance declines and problems multiply. This is true in every domain of human activity, including financial success. The person who maintains mental flexibility, who allows thoughts and emotions to flow without rigid attachment, who responds to circumstances with fluid adaptation rather than frozen fear, consistently outperforms those who are mentally rigid and blocked. Murphy's teaching that you must maintain the feeling of wealth even when circumstances suggest poverty is validated by research in neuroscience regarding the brain's reticular activating system. This system functions as a filter that determines what information reaches your conscious awareness from the overwhelming flood of sensory data you encounter every moment. The filter is programmed by your dominant thoughts and expectations. If you consistently think about lack and expect poverty, your reticular activating system filters reality to show you evidence of lack and poverty. You literally become blind to opportunities, resources, and possibilities that do not match your expectation. If you consistently think about abundance and expect wealth, your filter adjusts to show you opportunities and resources that support wealth. This is not mystical. This is documented brain function. Your expectations literally determine what you perceive in reality, and what you perceive determines what you can act upon. Therefore, Murphy's insistence that you must assume the feeling of wealth before the evidence appears is not self-deception. It is the strategic reprogramming of your perceptual filter to reveal the opportunities and resources that have been present all along, but invisible to your poverty-programmed awareness. You are not creating something from nothing. You are removing the blindness that prevented you from seeing what was already there. The principle of resonance in physics provides another validation for Murphy's law of attraction teachings. Resonance occurs when one vibrating system causes another system to vibrate at the same frequency. This is why a singer can shatter a glass by matching its resonant frequency, or why a tuning fork will cause another tuning fork of the same frequency to vibrate without physical contact. Murphy taught that your consciousness has a frequency determined by your dominant thoughts and feelings, and this frequency attracts circumstances, people, and opportunities that match it. Poverty consciousness resonates with poverty conditions. Wealth consciousness resonates with wealth conditions. Modern quantum physics, particularly the observer effect demonstrated in double-slit experiments, has shown that the act of observation influences the behavior of subatomic particles. The observer is not a passive recorder of reality, but an active participant in determining what manifests. While Murphy was not a quantum physicist, his teaching that consciousness is causal and that your mental state determines your physical experience aligns with these quantum findings. You are not a victim of external circumstances. You are an observer whose consciousness participates in creating the circumstances you observe. This gives scientific credibility to Murphy's insistence that changing your mind changes your world. The biological principle of homeostasis also validates Murphy's teaching about the subconscious mind, maintaining consistency with your self-image and beliefs. Your body maintains homeostasis, automatically regulating temperature, blood sugar, pH balance, and countless other variables to keep you within a narrow range of optimal function. If you get too hot, you sweat. If you get too cold, you shiver. The system automatically corrects deviations from the set point. Murphy taught that your subconscious maintains psychological and circumstantial homeostasis in exactly the same way. If your self-image is poor person and you suddenly receive a large sum of money, your subconscious will create circumstances to eliminate the money and return you to your set point of poverty, because that is the state it has been programmed to maintain. This is why lottery winners often return to poverty, and why people who lose weight often regain it. The external condition changed, but the internal set point did not. The subconscious, operating on the principle of homeostasis, automatically corrects the deviation and restores the familiar condition. Therefore, Murphy's emphasis on changing your self-image and your habitual mental state before expecting permanent external changes is validated by biological principles. You must reset the thermostat, change the set point, reprogram the homeostatic mechanism before permanent transformation can occur. Trying to change external conditions without changing internal programming is like trying to cool a room by putting ice on the thermometer. The thermostat will simply work harder to restore the temperature it is set to maintain. The principle of neuroplasticity in brain science validates Murphy's teaching that you can reprogram your mind through consistent mental practice. For decades, scientists believed the adult brain was fixed and unchangeable, but modern research has proven that the brain continuously rewires itself based on repeated thoughts, feelings, and experiences. The neural pathways you use most frequently become stronger and more automatic. The pathways you stop using weaken and eventually disappear. This means that poverty consciousness is not a permanent condition, but a habit, a well-worn neural pathway that can be weakened through disuse and replaced with a new pathway of wealth consciousness through consistent practice. Murphy's techniques of affirmation, visualization, and feeling are precisely the methods that create new neural pathways. When you repeatedly affirm wealth, visualize abundance, and feel prosperous, you are literally rewiring your brain, creating new neural structures that support wealth consciousness. This is not metaphor. This is measurable change in brain structure and function. The more consistently you practice, the stronger the new pathways become until wealth consciousness becomes your automatic, default state. This scientific validation removes any doubt about whether Murphy's methods can work. The brain is designed to be reprogrammed through the exact techniques he prescribed. The field of epigenetics has revealed that gene expression can be influenced by environmental factors, including thoughts and emotions, without changing the underlying DNA sequence. This means that your mental and emotional state can literally influence which genes are activated and which are suppressed, affecting your health, longevity, and even your physical appearance. While Murphy was teaching before epigenetics was discovered, his principle that consciousness affects physical conditions is validated by this research. Your thoughts and feelings are not confined to your skull. They create biochemical cascades that influence every cell in your body, and through your behavior and energy, influence your external circumstances as well. The principle of cognitive dissonance in psychology validates Murphy's warning about the destructive effects of resenting wealth while desiring it. Cognitive dissonance is the psychological discomfort that occurs when you hold contradictory beliefs or when your actions contradict your beliefs. The mind seeks to resolve this dissonance, and it typically does so by changing beliefs or behaviors to restore consistency. If you desire wealth but believe wealthy people are corrupt, you experience cognitive dissonance. Your mind will resolve this by either changing your desire for wealth or changing your belief about wealthy people. Most people unconsciously choose to suppress their desire for wealth or sabotage their financial success to maintain consistency with their negative beliefs about rich people. Murphy's solution: blessing the wealth of others and consciously adopting positive beliefs about prosperity, is the deliberate resolution of cognitive dissonance in favor of abundance. You are choosing to change the negative belief rather than suppress the positive desire. This aligns your entire psychological system toward wealth rather than against it, removing the internal conflict that creates self-sabotage. The validation from cognitive dissonance theory confirms that Murphy's approach is not just spiritually sound, but psychologically sophisticated, addressing the root cause of financial self-sabotage. The study of mirror neurons in neuroscience provides validation for Murphy's teaching about the importance of studying successful people and blessing their wealth. Mirror neurons fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing that action. This is the neurological basis for learning through observation and for empathy. When you observe wealthy people with admiration and blessing, your mirror neurons fire as if you were experiencing that wealth yourself. This creates a neural pattern of wealth in your brain, preparing you to manifest similar conditions. When you observe wealthy people with envy and resentment, your mirror neurons still fire. But the negative emotion creates a pattern of resistance and conflict rather than attraction and harmony. The field of psychoneuroimmunology has demonstrated that mental and emotional states directly affect immune function and overall health. Chronic stress, anxiety, and negative emotions suppress immune function and create susceptibility to disease. Positive emotions, confidence, and feelings of security enhance immune function and promote health. Murphy's teaching that poverty consciousness creates disease and wealth, consciousness creates health, is validated by this research. The stress of financial insecurity literally makes you sick, weakening your body and clouding your mind. The peace of financial security literally makes you healthy, strengthening your body and clarifying your mind. Prosperity is not just financially beneficial, it is medically necessary for optimal health. The principle of compound interest in finance validates Murphy's teaching about the exponential growth potential of wealth consciousness. Just as money invested wisely grows exponentially over time through compound interest, consciousness invested wisely in wealth-building thoughts and practices grows exponentially in its manifestation power. The person who practices wealth consciousness consistently for months and years does not experience linear improvement. They experience exponential expansion as the accumulated mental patterns reach critical mass and begin manifesting with increasing speed and magnitude. This is why Murphy emphasized consistency and persistence. The true power of the practice reveals itself over time as the compound effect of repeated mental impressions creates unstoppable momentum toward prosperity. The illustrative anecdote Murphy frequently shared involved a struggling writer who could not sell his work despite years of effort and undeniable talent. The writer came to Murphy in desperation, explaining that he had written multiple books, submitted countless articles, and received nothing but rejection letters in return. His financial situation was dire, and he was considering abandoning his writing career entirely to take a conventional job he knew would crush his creative spirit. Murphy, with his characteristic diagnostic precision, did not focus on the writer's technique, his marketing strategy, or his choice of publishers. Instead, he asked a single penetrating question. How do you feel when you see a best-selling author or read about a successful writer? The writer's response was immediate and revealing. I feel angry and resentful. These people are no more talented than I am, but they have all the success while I have nothing. It's not fair. The publishing industry is rigged, and mediocre writers with connections get published, while truly talented writers like me are ignored. Murphy recognized this response as the exact diagnosis of the writer's poverty. The writer was not failing because he lacked talent or because the industry was unfair. He was failing because he was in a state of vibrational warfare with the success he claimed to desire. Every time he encountered evidence of a successful writer, he was affirming his own exclusion from that success. He was literally pushing away the very thing he wanted through the force of his resentment. Murphy prescribed a specific treatment that seemed absurdly simple to the writer, but which Murphy knew would dissolve the block if practiced consistently. He instructed the writer to go to a bookstore at least 3 times per week and spend time in the bestseller section. The writer was to pick up the most successful books, read the author biographies, look at their photographs and consciously bless their success. He was to say, either aloud or mentally, "I rejoice in your success. I celebrate your prosperity. I am grateful that the universe rewards creative work so abundantly. I claim similar success for myself." Murphy emphasized that the writer must continue this practice until he could genuinely feel happiness for other writers' success without any trace of envy or resentment. The writer was skeptical, but desperate enough to try anything. The first few visits to the bookstore were torture. Looking at best-selling authors and blessing their success felt like self-betrayal, like celebrating his own failure. The words felt hollow and false. But Murphy had warned him that the practice would feel unnatural at first because he was reversing a deeply ingrained pattern. The writer persisted, visiting the bookstore religiously 3 times per week, forcing himself to bless success even when the blessing felt like ashes in his mouth. Gradually, over a period of weeks, something began to shift. The resentment began to dissolve. The anger began to soften. He started to feel genuine appreciation for well-crafted books, regardless of who wrote them. As the internal shift occurred, external circumstances began to change in ways the writer could not have predicted or arranged. A former colleague he had not spoken to in years contacted him with an unexpected opportunity. An editor who had rejected his work 2 years earlier reached out asking if he had any new material. A literary agent attended a small reading where the writer was performing and asked to see his manuscript. Within 3 months of beginning Murphy's blessing practice, the writer had signed a contract with a major publisher for a book that became a moderate success. Within a year, he had published 3 more books and was earning a comfortable living from his writing. The writer returned to Murphy in amazement, asking how such a simple practice could have produced such dramatic results. Murphy explained that the writer had been broadcasting a frequency of exclusion and resentment that made him invisible to opportunities and repellent to success. By blessing other writers' success, he had changed his frequency to one of inclusion and celebration. He had signaled to his subconscious that success in writing was good, that the universe rewards creative work, that he approved of abundance in his field. The subconscious, receiving this new signal, began arranging circumstances to include him in the success he was now blessing rather than excluding him from the success he had been resenting. This anecdote illustrates the profound truth that you cannot attract what you resent. The universe does not respond to your words or your conscious desires. It responds to your vibrational frequency, your emotional state, your habitual mental atmosphere. The writer had been saying, "I want success," while feeling success is unfair and wrong. The feeling always wins. The emotion is the command. By changing his emotional response to others' success from resentment to blessing, he changed the command he was giving to his subconscious from "exclude me from success" to "include me in success." The external results followed automatically from the internal shift. Murphy emphasized that this principle applies to every area of life, not just writing or financial success. If you resent beautiful people, you will not become beautiful. If you resent healthy people, you will not become healthy. If you resent happy relationships, you will not have a happy relationship. Whatever you judge, criticize, or resent, you push away from yourself. Whatever you bless, celebrate, and admire, you draw toward yourself. This is not moralistic advice about being a nice person. This is strategic instruction about how to program your subconscious for the results you desire. Blessing is not optional if you want to manifest abundance. It is essential. The writer's story also demonstrates the principle of persistence through the lag time between cause and effect. The writer did not see immediate results from his blessing practice. The first week, nothing changed. The second week, nothing changed. If he had given up after 2 weeks, concluding that the technique did not work, he would have remained in poverty. But he persisted through the period when external evidence had not yet shifted, trusting Murphy's promise that consciousness is cause and conditions are effect. His persistence was rewarded when the accumulated mental impressions reached critical mass and began manifesting in physical form. This illustrates why most people fail with mental techniques. They practice for a few days or weeks, see no immediate change in circumstances, and conclude that the methods do not work. They do not understand that there is always a gestation period between planting the mental seed and harvesting the physical crop. They are like a farmer who plants seeds, checks the next day, sees no plants, and concludes that planting does not work. Murphy taught that you must persist in your mental work with the same patience and faith that a farmer persists in watering and tending a field, knowing that the harvest will come in its proper season if the work is done consistently. The transformation in the writer's circumstances also validates Murphy's teaching that opportunities and connections exist all around you, but you are blind to them when your consciousness is tuned to the wrong frequency. The colleague who contacted him, the editor who reached out, the agent who attended his reading were not new additions to the universe created by his mental work. They were already present in his environment, but his resentment-based consciousness had made him invisible to them, or had caused him to miss previous opportunities for connection. When his consciousness shifted to blessing and celebration, he became visible to these opportunities. His perceptual filter changed, allowing him to see and respond to possibilities that had been present but unnoticed. This anecdote serves as powerful validation that Murphy's principles are not theoretical abstractions, but practical tools that produce measurable results in the lives of real people facing real challenges. The writer's success was not luck, coincidence, or the result of some external change in the publishing industry. It was the direct result of changing his consciousness from resentment to blessing, from exclusion to inclusion, from poverty to wealth in his mental atmosphere. The external success was simply the mirror reflection of the internal transformation, proving once again that consciousness is cause and conditions are effect in every area of human experience. The synthesis of power in Murphy's system reveals that poverty is not fundamentally a lack of paper currency, physical resources, or external opportunities. Poverty is a lack of mind, a deficiency in consciousness, a disease of thought that manifests as material limitation. This understanding is revolutionary because it shifts the entire problem from the external realm, where you are relatively powerless, to the internal realm, where you have absolute sovereignty. You cannot directly control the economy, the job market, the decisions of employers, or the behavior of other people, but you can control your consciousness, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, and your mental atmosphere. This is where your true power resides, and this is where the cure for poverty must be applied. When you cure the mind of its poverty disease, when you dissolve the beliefs in limitation and replace them with recognition of infinite supply, when you shift your identity from poor person to wealthy person, when you establish the feeling of abundance as your habitual state, the paper money appears automatically. This is not magic. This is the orderly operation of mental law. Consciousness is cause, conditions are effect. Change the cause, and the effect must change with mathematical precision. The money you seek is not hidden in some distant location, requiring years of struggle to reach. The money is already present in the invisible realm of infinite supply, waiting for you to open the channel through which it can flow into your experience. Murphy's entire system rests on this foundational truth. You are not trying to get something you do not have. You are removing the obstruction that prevents you from receiving what is already yours by divine right. The universe is not withholding abundance from you. You are withholding yourself from abundance through false beliefs, fearful expectations, and habitual thoughts of lack. The moment you remove these obstructions through the techniques Murphy prescribed, the flow begins immediately. Opportunities appear, ideas come, resources manifest, Money arrives through channels you could not have predicted or arranged through conscious effort alone. The message of empowerment Murphy delivered with unwavering conviction is that there is no virtue in suffering, no spiritual merit in poverty, no divine requirement that you struggle financially to prove your worthiness. These beliefs are distortions of religious teaching, misinterpretations of spiritual principles that have kept humanity enslaved to limitation for centuries. The truth is that you were designed for abundance, created by an infinite creator who knows nothing of scarcity, born into a universe of endless supply and limitless possibility. Your natural state is prosperity, not poverty. Your birthright is abundance, not lack. Any teaching that tells you otherwise is a lie that serves to keep you small, powerless, and controllable. Murphy declared that you cannot help the poor by being one of them. This statement offends conventional morality, which glorifies self-sacrifice and celebrates those who voluntarily embrace poverty in solidarity with the suffering. But Murphy was not concerned with appearing compassionate. He was concerned with revealing truth. The reality is that a poor person has nothing to give except sympathy, which does not feed hungry children, or pay rent, or create opportunities. A wealthy person has resources to share, businesses to create that employ people, investments to make that fund innovation, and money to donate that supports worthy causes. If you truly want to serve humanity, if you genuinely desire to make a positive difference in the world, you must first become prosperous yourself. Get rich, Murphy commanded. This is not selfish, this is strategic. Use the divine power that flows through your consciousness to lift yourself out of limitation, and then use your resources to lift others. Become the living proof that prosperity is possible, that the principles work, that anyone can transform their financial condition through the proper application of mental law. Your wealth becomes a beacon of hope for others who are struggling, evidence that the universe is truly abundant and that prosperity is available to all who align their consciousness with it. Your success gives others permission to succeed. Your abundance proves that abundance is real. Your transformation demonstrates that transformation is possible. The vault of infinite supply is open, Murphy declared. The combination that unlocks it is not a secret known only to a privileged few. The combination is in your mind, accessible to you right now, available for immediate use. You do not need special connections, elite education, inherited wealth, or lucky breaks. You need only to understand and apply the principles of consciousness that govern manifestation. These principles are impartial, operating with the same reliability for everyone who uses them correctly. The universe does not play favorites. The law does not discriminate. Abundance flows to those who open the channel, regardless of their background, history, or current circumstances. The challenge Murphy issues is specific and actionable, designed to begin reprogramming your consciousness immediately. For the next 24 hours, you are to engage in what he called the blessing challenge. Every single time you encounter a sign of wealth, whether you see an expensive car, a beautiful home, a well-dressed person, a successful business, or any other evidence of prosperity, you must immediately say, either aloud or mentally, "I bless that abundance and I claim it for myself." This practice serves multiple purposes simultaneously. It trains you to notice abundance rather than lack. It reverses the habit of envying or resenting wealth. It affirms your own worthiness to receive prosperity, and it programs your subconscious with the pattern of blessing rather than criticism. 24 hours may seem like a short time, but Murphy knew that even this brief period of concentrated practice would begin to shift your consciousness if you engage in it with full commitment. You will be surprised at how many opportunities arise in a single day to practice blessing. Every advertisement, every store window, every person you pass on the street, every home you drive by presents an opportunity to choose blessing over resentment, celebration over envy, inclusion over exclusion. By the end of 24 hours, you will have impressed your subconscious with hundreds of affirmations of abundance, each one dissolving a bit more of the poverty consciousness that has been limiting your financial flow. The challenge requires vigilance and conscious effort, because your habitual pattern is probably the opposite. When you see a Ferrari, your automatic response might be criticism, "What a waste of money," or "That person is probably compensating for something." When you see a mansion, your automatic thought might be resentment. Nobody needs a house that big, or the wealth gap is obscene. These automatic responses are poverty commands that you have been giving to your subconscious thousands of times, programming yourself for limitation. The blessing challenge interrupts this pattern, giving you the opportunity to consciously choose a different response, to reprogram yourself for abundance rather than lack. Murphy emphasized that the blessing must be genuine, not mechanical. You cannot simply mouth the words while feeling resentment underneath. The subconscious responds to feeling, not to words. Therefore, you must work to generate actual appreciation for the wealth you are observing. Recognize that someone's prosperity does not diminish your own potential prosperity. The universe is not a zero-sum game where one person's gain is another person's loss. There is enough for everyone. Someone else's wealth is evidence that wealth exists, that it is real, that it is possible. Their abundance is proof that the principles work, that prosperity is available, that the universe rewards those who align with it. As you practice the blessing challenge, you may notice resistance arising. You may feel foolish, as if you are lying to yourself or denying reality. This resistance is the poverty consciousness fighting to maintain its dominance. It does not want to be dissolved. It has been your familiar companion for years or decades, and it will not surrender without protest. But you must persist through the resistance, continuing to bless even when the blessing feels forced or false. Over time, the resistance will weaken, the blessing will feel more natural, and the shift in consciousness will become permanent. The final call to action is the invitation to subscribe to this channel's Sacred Logic, to continue receiving the principles, techniques, and truths that dissolve limitation and restore your natural inheritance of abundance. This is not merely entertainment or inspiration. This is education in the highest sense, the transmission of knowledge that has the power to transform your life completely. Each video in this series is a treatment, a mental medicine designed to cure a specific aspect of the poverty disease. By subscribing, you commit to your own healing, to your own prosperity, to your own transformation from limitation to abundance. Murphy's legacy is not a collection of abstract theories or philosophical speculations. His legacy is a proven system of mental techniques that have transformed thousands of lives, lifting people from poverty to prosperity, from struggle to success, from limitation to freedom. You now have access to this system. You now understand the principles. You now know the techniques. The only question remaining is whether you will apply them with consistency and faith, or whether you will allow doubt, fear, and habitual poverty consciousness to keep you trapped in limitation. The choice is yours, and the choice is now. The vault is open. The combination is in your mind. Enter and claim your inheritance.